Hi, I'm Sid, uh, and I'm here with Jay, and we're going to have a conversation about a vision we have to develop software to make cities and municipalities operate better. Um, there's a lot of things that cities provide to people that are very rapidly increasing in cost. The three things most rapidly increasing in cost for people are housing, education, and healthcare. And in many places, those three are organized by the cities. Housing, obviously, that's the city you live in. Schools are mostly organized on a city level. And then many times, hospitals are also run to that, although there's all kinds of different ways. I believe that there's an opportunity to run complex organizations better with software. We've seen that, for example, in healthcare in the US, where you have Epic and Cerner that help to like automate hospitals and have better feedback. We've seen that with manufacturing companies that use software like SAP or NetSuite to make sure that that all the orders and all the things going out are administered correctly. A lot of the knowledge and the processes you would otherwise need are embedded in that software. And it allows people to be way more effective, make less mistakes, and run these organizations better. There's no such a thing for municipalities, for cities. And I wondered a bit why that was. And I talked with a few people in the industry, and they say it's really hard to sell to governments. So government automation tends to be a bit outdated, and it tends to be extremely expensive to sell to them. It's a very political process to get big purchases approved, and there's a lot of downside and a lot of upside to it. So it's pretty bureaucratic. Implementation takes a long time. That's why these projects also fail a lot of times, because it has to integrate with all the other software, and that makes it that no one really wants to take on that burden. So where companies and commercial organizations are getting more and more automated, cities have not done that very well. And there's an enormous demand for cities, for better cities. And the demand is most pronounced in Africa, where you have, it's the only continent where the population is still rising rapidly, and you have a rising urbanization rate, where more and more people live in cities. Living in cities is like a great thing for people. Like, they have more economic opportunity. It's also great for the environment. It's more efficient environment-wise. So it's a great thing, but there's a need for better cities, and there's a need for more of them. But also, it would be great if they provide a better service. Maybe contrast it a bit with transportation. In transportation, for example, in taxi cabs, there was a lack of accountability. In every city you went to, they were governed. But even though that was the case, it wasn't the most friendly experience. Taxi drivers were notorious for being rude to you and not being very customer-centric. That's not because taxi drivers are worse people. It's just they didn't have an incentive to do so. And as Warren Buffett said, even though you know the power of incentive, you keep underestimating them. And I think we all underestimated what the power was. And now you see with applications like Lyft and Uber that there's a much bigger incentive to be a better supplier, be a better driver, but also to be a better customer. If you're a bad customer and you're rude to the taxi drivers, you'll get a low rating and no taxis will pick you up. And overall, that leads to a much better experience for both parties. Now, there's a lot of like privacy concerns with people rating each other, and there's a great Black Mirror episode which shows what you take it over the top, what it does. But all in all, it makes places better. So I think it's time to use technology and end-to-end application to make cities better run. But it's really hard to do that to existing cities. So then we kind of need a new city. We need to start from scratch, where the application arises with the needs of a new city. If you start a new city in the beginning, probably you're going to sell plots of land. So you need that. Then you're going to tax people. You need that. Then you're going to have an entrance process. If it's a gated community, how do people enter the city, etc. So as a new city expands, the software can expand. It can grow with the city. And that way you avoid that integration problem that we talked about earlier. And if in that software we can embed best practices, but also embed a feedback mechanism where, as a customer of the city, as a citizen, you're on your best behavior towards civil servants in the city, but also that civil servants are accountable, that if they request a bribe, they're going to get 1 star, and they're going to be in problems with their boss because their boss is also accountable for how these people are rated. We can get to a better environment. So that's the project we're pursuing, solving the 3 fastest rising costs in people's life and trying to bend that curve and make sure that it's better value for money, that you get a better level of service because there's more accountability and because it's easier for people to do the right thing because the automation is helping them. Jay, anything you want to add or ask?
Yeah, I mean, so Sid, what was it that first brought you to this problem? Like, how did you come to really want to bring some of the background, the talent, and really the network that you have to bear on this challenge of bringing technology to new cities?
Yeah. I first got interested, not so much in the software, not so much in cities, but in charter cities. There's been amazing success in Singapore, in Shenzhen, in Dubai, with cities that have a charter that gives them a different rule set than surrounding places, and that managed to grow a lot faster and that create a better life for their residents. I found that very interesting. And this became a thing, charter cities. And there's now people like Mark Luther that are starting an institute to further that cause. It's a Center for Innovative Governance. And I'm a donor to that cause, and they organized a symposium here in San Francisco. And then Mia took the stage, and he talked about building a new city in Zambia. And he didn't have a charter. He might get one, but it wasn't a charter city. It was just a city. Then I realized, like, although the idea of the charter, it's interesting, it's very appealing. It's like, hey, you have a bunch of new laws, and you make a better place. The biggest need people have is not some new laws. The biggest need people have is like, it's affordable, it's safe, there's little corruption there. And those are things that are not prevented by law. You don't need a new set of law. Like in Zambia, corruption is illegal. In Zambia, crime is illegal, like it is everywhere else. So you don't need a new rule set. You just need cities that are a better service. And I'm very inspired by like platforms like Uber, like Airbnb, to transform what we used to accept. We used to accept that renting house was not a great experience. But through feedback mechanisms and setting expectations correctly, the transaction costs are way lower and it's a way better experience. And I've seen that in companies with end-to-end systems like the ERP systems. Why not do that for cities? So that's how it got started. Like Mia himself talked about using software to make this better. Yeah. And I also realized I I think cities are very interesting, and why I dreamt a bit of starting a city myself. But then when I saw the huge challenge that was, but also the places where that would happen, I recognized that I might not be up to that challenge, but also I might not be the right person, because we want these cities to be run by locals. You don't want to go as a white guy to Zambia and start a city there, or to Honduras. So it's much better if it comes from the local community. But I still want to contribute, and I know a thing or two about software, so maybe I saw that as the best avenue for me to contribute.
Yeah, got it. Well, let's kind of follow down that same path there, Sid, and talk to me about what you think software and technology's most important contribution to a new city might be.
Yeah, software does a couple of things. It makes something repeatable. It makes it measurable. It lets you easily do the right thing, or the right thing by default. It creates this feedback loop. So right now, when I have a service that the city is not providing to an adequate level, I can write a formal complaint, but it's a very involved process. It's going to take a while before I receive any feedback, and I know pretty sure that nothing's going to happen based on that. There's apps to report kind of things that are amiss on a city level, but it's like it's a front end to the city, and that's really improved things. But the back end of resolving that and making sure people follow up tends to be still a very like manual process. And cities are just every organization is becoming a software organization. But if you look at cities, the amount of software they need and all the integrations, it's making it very hard to become that software organization. So I think that opportunity is there to make it easier, to make entry and exit in the city easier, to make it easier to get public transport from the city to somewhere else, to make it easier to pay your taxes. All these things, we're used to kind of like the consumer grade experience where you use like PayPal to pay something, versus like the government experience. And the government experience is always like more tedious, slower, frequently more insecure, even though they have all these extra security measures, but they're not comprehensive, etc. And in the commercial sector, they're able to do more and more with less people every year, and the same is not happening at the city level. And that's not due to people being not well intentioned. They're great people working there, but they need to be augmented, helped by software.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, Sid. And one of the things that came up for me as you were chatting, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but your gut took you to, at least what I heard was a disconnect between the technology that connects a government with its people, right, or a city with its people, and the technology on which the city runs. And because the first thing you said was basically like, people interacting with government services have a hard time having that feedback basically be put into play to make the city better for them. So it sounds to me like you're actually not just talking about software to make cities run better. You're actually talking about more people-centered cities, and you envision a way in which technology in the pace at which it improves a feedback mechanism with the people who get kind of need things from cities, as well as kind of the pace at which it takes that feedback and puts it into play in the way that the city is run. Like technology can create much more truly people-centered communities. That's what I'm hearing, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that potential is there, and there's all kinds of great people that are like doing software at the outskirts of the city, like the interface with the rest of the world. There's great so-called 311 apps where you can report things.
Mm.
It's a lot of initiatives with open budgets where you can see how your money is spent. But it ends at the outskirts because the rest of the layers are very hard to change. So I'm pretty sure that the 311 app is not integrated with like the promotional process of people or people their yearly evaluation.
Yeah.
That it's not incorporated in like the 360 feedback management software, all these other things that we could be doing and aren't doing.
Yeah.
And it's hard to like, are we sure that the people fixing the 311 problems, like, is their location known so we can route the nearest one to the problem as quickly as possible? Probably not. Like, those are problems. It's obvious now that we can do that with software, but in 9 out of 10 cases, it's not happening yet. And instead of fixing that on a per city level, all the cities should benefit from a platform that does that a lot better. It's going to be very expensive to develop all of this, but when it's developed, it should be reused around the world. There's just like there's in manufacturing, almost everyone's using SAP, and in healthcare, there's also like 2 big players. It makes sense for two or three players in this market. Right now, I think there isn't one consistent end-to-end application for cities, let alone 3 of them that people can choose from.
Yeah. It's a huge vision, Sid, right? In terms of bringing technology into the way that that people interact with the cities that they live in, and using that to enable kind of like more cities to develop in bigger and better ways. Let's say we get it right? Let's say that we begin to make that type of vision come to reality. What happens? What changes for citizens? What changes for workers? What changes for the world?
Yeah, I want to also address the first part. It's a huge vision. This project will most likely fail. I showed this to a friend who is an investor, a really good one. And halfway through the presentation, he said, "Is this a joke?" Because it's so ambitious, he thought I was joking, even though he knows I'm a pretty serious person most of the time. So yes, it is very ambitious. It's most likely to fail. I do think there's one advantage to really ambitious visions. They attract the best people. So that's my only hope. The only way we're going to do this is by getting the best people in the world on this problem, because it's worth solving.
Yeah. Nice.
If we solve it, 2 things will happen. We bend those cost curves. If you look at inflation, a lot of things have been getting more affordable. Entertainment, digital products, what you eat, food, cars, a lot of things have been getting accessible to more people, except for the 3 things run by cities: housing, education, healthcare. Year over year, more expensive. So it's like reducing the people's income. Yes, their income goes up, but the cost of these goes up faster. So you really improve like the income of a lot of people. And this will start in places which are building a lot of new cities, mainly Africa, but maybe also some other countries. So it's gonna help the most where people need it the most. So that's a great thing. The other thing is, not only does the cost for like a house decrease, but you're going to get better value for your money. It's going to be a more secure surrounding. The security guards are going to be more friendly towards you. um, potholes are going to get fixed quicker. Not because people are better intentioned, because people are well intentioned now, but because there's a better feedback loop, there's better routing, there's better automation. So those are the two things. If we can fix that, we can greatly increase like the prosperity of people and improve the things that matter most to them, where you live, that you get great healthcare and that your the kids and get great education.
Nice. So a big vision and a big vision, one that is likely to fail, one that our greatest hope is to attract the biggest thinkers and the best talent towards, in order to make some potential kind of like roadways into it, and the potential for impact both on in terms of like economic success and in terms of like the experience of life.
Yep, and we want someone who is relentlessly resourceful. It's easy to think big. It's really hard to make it happen. We're going to work with some new cities, and there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, figuring out how to collaborate, the business model, how to make this happen. And the problems are going to be numerous, from the data privacy problems to corruption to pricing this thing to just regular technology development problems like uptime, velocity of new features, support, and customer service.
Why now, Sid? Why now for the market, and why now for you?
Why now for the market? I think we've seen end-to-end solutions start winning in the marketplace for commercial organizations. That's been happening over a longer time period. But I think now the gap with governments is starting to become so big that it's obvious something has to change. I think also you're able to ship a lot more in a shorter amount of time, like technologies like Ruby on Rails and React are allowing you to ship a lot more productivity with few people. And the new city movement, like this, people starting new cities. It happened before you. I know you come from a city that was newly started, but it's starting to become a movement, and I'm seeing more and more of these initiatives pop up. So one of the reasons might be that migration is getting harder. You have the right to leave your country, but you don't have a right to enter a new country, and countries are shutting down their borders, almost forcing us to make sure that we improve the countries where people are instead of having them leave the country. For me, why now? I now have the resources to do something like that, and I've basically got educated on this problem.
Yeah. So and because I know you, I know that some of that education has to do with like the need in the world for new cities and charter cities, and the support that technology can give to those. But I also know that the education you've had over the last decade or so, in terms of the potential for end-to-end technology solutions and what they can do for people, right? Like the people who make them and the people who use the services that they're built on. So talk to us a little bit about what you've learned about end-to-end solutions that you think is going to be really important for success here.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'm doing this in a private capacity.
Yeah.
It does say CEO on my Zoom link. I think my day job is the CEO of GitLab, and GitLab is an end-to-end solution for the DevOps lifecycle. It allows you to go from planning what you're going to make in software to all the way to deploying it and securing and defending it. And I was very skeptical of building an end-to-end solution. When someone proposed that, both my co-founder first said no, and I said no, because we thought it's much better to have single applications that you, or separate applications that you compose together. And through modern APIs, you can do a lot. What we didn't expect is how much more efficient it was. It was so much better to have a single source of truth, a single data store, a single authentication authorization mechanism. And what I didn't expect is how much kind of functionality we could add before things started breaking. Right now, we're at an amazing level of functionality and things are nowhere near breaking. It's actually going very well, and we're increasing our velocity. We're shipping an enormous amount of new features every month. And that was, I always learned that complexity is exponential to the number of lines of code. So I expected us to at some point slow down really rapidly, but it seems that with good separation in the code base, with great testing, etc., you can keep the speed up for a lot longer than I thought. Probably GitLab is one of the most complex open core code bases in the world right now, and on an application level. And we're not anywhere near to slowing down. So I've gained a lot of confidence that there's a lot more possible than I thought, and then maybe also that the rest of the world thinks.
I heard, one of the things that came up for me as you were saying that, Sid, was this idea that technology enables growth. That the way we build technology and the way that we support it affects the pace at which growth can occur. And it sounds to me like one of the things that you've learned is that there are ways that we can, the way that the technology that runs cities right now is built seems to actually inhibit the growth and improvement of cities and of government services. And there are new ways of developing and these enabling technologies that might actually allow cities to grow at the pace that their people need them to.
Yeah, the only way to increase people's income is to make sure we can do more with less time, and that we get more done in less time. And there's great potential there. If you let the people in the world that want to migrate, that would double the income of the world. Double it. There's never been an innovation like that before. Because if you move people to a place of greater productivity, their output will just increase. So I think we're seeing in the world that migration is getting harder, not easier. So the hope is to create new cities in the same country so people don't have to leave their country, but those cities would have a higher productivity. I'm really encouraged by remote learning and remote working. I think initiatives like Lambda School are showing that in 9 months, you can greatly increase your own productivity by learning how to code. And with GitLab, we're over 500 people from more than 500 locations in 50 countries that are working all remote. So if we have the learning and the working opportunities for people, we can greatly increase the world's effectiveness. Have people just earn double, triple, quadruple their income. I think that's a giant opportunity. And I think one of the missing pieces is great cities to live in that are safe, that are honest in the sense that there's little corruption, and that are a great service to the people living there with affordable housing, healthcare, and education. So I think that together with remote education and remote working, that combined with new cities that are run better with software, I think that's a giant opportunity to increase everyone's income and give everyone more opportunities.
A big deal, Sid. I think a big deal. So I think how about I wrap it up with just one question, right? We've talked about massive vision, massive potential for impact, some potential for failure, but also some real opportunity to shoot after. So where does one start, right? Where does one start when one wants to work on something that is so potentially enormous?
Yeah. So you can. It always takes a team, so we have to assemble a team, probably a team oriented towards software development. And that team starts with a leader. So we're going to recruit a CEO who's going to build that team. And I'm able to pay for that team while we develop the software. We're in touch with a couple of cities that are willing to try out this software. And then we'll have to see whether we can get them to use it, whether we can get them to pay for it, and then whether we can create a sustainable company from that.
Got it. This starts with team with team and partners, and
it starts with a great CEO.
Yeah. Who do you need?
So we need someone who is familiar with software development. So someone has programming experience, someone who can go after and hire the best people in the world, who can manage that team, can set clear goals, hold people accountable, identify and solve underperformance. I think that's someone who's relentlessly resourceful, because that's what it's going to take to bring this to fruition.
Do you think that this person, what are you going to most be looking for them to have done in their prior life, in order to give you some indicators that, he or she may be really well suited to this type of problem?
Yeah, I think you want a great skill set. So you're looking for education, probably kind of an engineering degree. You want someone who's worked with software. You want to see the resourcefulness. So they have undertaken and completed projects that are daunting for them at that age. I think that those are things I would look for.
Yeah. If you had, if I was to put you in front of your, first potential CEO candidate tomorrow, they got a big challenge ahead of them. Let's get them prepped to talk to you well. What's the first question you're going to ask them?
Well, something that comes to mind is tell me about a situation in which you took on something a bit bigger than you could probably bite off, but you managed to get through it. Tell me what you did and what you were faced with.
Yeah, got it. And what does that tell you about this person?
That they don't shy away from a big challenge, and that they then can deal with setbacks and failures and bounce back from that and bring the project to completion.
Cool. What's it going to be like for you to work with that person? What type of partnership are you trying to envision?
A lot of fun.
Nice.
Because it's going to be an exceptional person. So nothing is more fun than working with great people. I think I have to be very supportive, because there's going to be a lot of setbacks just due to the environment and due to the newness of the business. And for me, it's important to kind of set clear goals, first based on usage, later based probably on financial metrics, and to make sure that there's a certain customer orientation. In the end, we should not fall in love with our vision. We should fall in love with the problems that we have to solve for the cities.
Yeah. Oh, cool, Sid. It's been a pretty fantastic conversation on my end. We've talked about this a few times, a little bit more casually, and I think to see a lot of the parts and pieces come together, and to see you beginning to actually get some traction on that by kind of beginning to reach out and find the right types of persons is just really exciting.
Cool. Thanks, Jay. It's been a pleasure working with you on this so far. I'm looking forward to fleshing out further. Thanks.
All right.